Five Nights at Freddy's is now available to check out in theaters and also on Peacock. I've never played the games before, so how did I feel about this movie? Well, stick around and let's discuss it. A troubled security guard begins working at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. During his first night on the job, he realizes that the night shift won't be so easy to get through. Pretty soon, he will unveil what actually happened at Freddy's. The film stars Josh Hutcherson, Piper Rubio, Elizabeth Lail, Matthew Lillard, Mary Stuart Masterson, and Kat Connor Sterling, and was directed by Tammi. And I've never heard of any of the movies that she's done. She's done one movie called The Win. She's done a few TV series that I've never heard of before. So when I first heard about Five Nights at Freddy's, the only reason I even knew about this video game was 2 years ago. There was a movie that came out called Willy's Wonderland with Nick Cage, and I had a blast with that movie in theaters. I think I went to that movie by myself, maybe with my wife, and there was nobody in the theater, I remember. And when I heard that this movie was announced, I did realize that this was like an original game from years ago, and Willy's Wonderland is what you would say kind of a copy, but more so a rated R movie that is a lot different from Five Nights at Freddy's. The story follows Mike, played by Josh Hutcherson. He's having trouble paying bills, his parents have passed on, he's taking care of his sister Abby, he has his aunt Jane who's trying to gather custody because she feels like he is an unfit guardian. He works at a security job at a mall, and he mistakenly thinks this person kidnaps this kid, and he beats him up, he gets fired from his job, and then he goes to this counseling played by Matthew Lillard, and he gives him a job to look over Freddy Fazbear's pizza place where it is abandoned, and he just has to be a security guard throughout the night. And he reluctantly does not want to take this job, but he ends up taking it. And when he is actually taking this job, he has to have a babysitter to take care of Abby, and this aunt is just trying to gain custody the entire time throughout this film. And also he is having these really bad nightmares as he has a brother that was killed when he was younger, and he takes these sleeping pills, and every time he takes these sleeping pills he has these nightmares, and it gets especially worse when he's at this Freddy's place just watching over the security cams, and you have these animatronics that actually come alive during the night. I did like the backstory with Mike and his sister Abby. I do like the animatronics here. They really put a lot of thought into these animatronics. Now, I've never technically played the games before, but I have seen people play gameplay of these games. So I do see like the animatronics on that game, and I think they did a really good job of actually putting them on screen. I think the look of Freddy's Pizza Place, it looks really good. It looks really creepy. I think it's a great setting. Obviously, nobody is there but these animatronics. And I do feel like the animatronics, you definitely get that creepy kind of vibe with them. It definitely reminded me back when I was younger and I used to go to Chuck E. Cheese and they had all those animatronics. And I always felt like those animatronics were real people and they weren't really robots. So this film, it definitely reminded me of those memories back when I was 5 years old. The biggest problem, though, that I can say about this movie is the fact that it lacks a little bit of tension. It's a PG-13 rating, and when I actually heard that, I was like, okay, so there's going to be no blood in this probably. It's going to be very minimal, and it definitely is very minimal. There's not many kills in here, and when most of the kills actually happen, they're off screen and you don't see them. I think the most violent thing that was in this film is where you see like half of a body, like the bottom portions of the legs actually laying down on the ground. That's probably the most violent thing in this movie. And there's another part in here where they have this little machine that they use where it looks like they're going to rip someone's face off, but we never see that really actually happen. And I did like that. It reminded me of like a Saw kind of thing. So I think certain things in here, they really did do right. But I feel like this movie, it definitely feels like it's definitely made for the fans. And I feel like they're going to recognize a lot more things that I did not recognize in this movie. Because it lacks a lot of gore, blood, and it's marketed as a horror movie, it fails to really captivate a horror kind of atmosphere. It feels like it's going to really break open and break loose, but it just never does. It spends a lot of time on the backstory with Mike, which, again, I like the backstory, but I just felt like, other than Mike and Abby, I really didn't care about any of the other characters. There's this cop played by Elizabeth Lail, and she has a reveal towards the end of the film, which I really didn't care for. I didn't buy her story. Matthew Lillard, he's barely in this film, and when he does appear, he's this counselor. He has a little bit of a different role as well towards the end of the film, which is explained, which again I didn't really care for. I felt like this movie, it felt very sluggish to get through. It was having trouble keeping my attention. I knew it wouldn't be like a violent kind of movie, but I was looking for a little bit more horror. I mean, this film, it feels very much a perfect film for people that don't really like horror. They don't want a lot of violence. They don't want a lot of scares or jump scares, anything like that. This is kind of the perfect movie for like a 12-year-old, 11-year-old. I think they'll really enjoy this. But again, if you're a fan of the games, I think you can really enjoy this as well. But for me and for other outsiders that have never played the game, it's just not that great of a movie. I can see why they put this on Peacock and in the theaters, although it is going to do well, it seems like, at the box office. But I was glad to watch this at home. I just felt like a lot of times there wasn't a lot really going on. I was also disappointed in the fact I have seen gameplay, and when you're in the security office, the actual creatures, they actually get closer to you because you see them on camera, and eventually they try to appear into the office. I wanted a little bit more of that throughout this film to actually create some tension, feel like, you are actually looking out for them and feeling like they could be around at any corner. And I just didn't feel like they did enough of that. I felt like there were times where they would play their little song and jam their little song on stage, which they overdid a little bit too much, I think. But I just felt like there was kills in here where there were characters that you didn't care about, which that's kind of how this film is. Most of the kills that happen in this film, they're characters that aren't developed. You don't know who the heck they are. And it's just those kills for sake of having horror kills in the film. But really, other than Mike's story and Abby joining along for the ride, everybody else in this film, they feel very dull as characters. And unfortunately with this film, I can't say that I'm going to rewatch this film. As far as a score for this film, I would give it a 2.5 out of 5. It's an okay film, but I do think it's a well-made film. I think atmosphere, as far as the whole setup of Freddy's place, I think that looks really good. I think a lot of things in the game they do get right, so I do compliment them for that. Backstory isn't too bad with Mike, of course. But other than that, and some of the other characters and some of the reveals towards the end, I really didn't care for it, and I did not buy it. And I have to say, I would really want to watch Willy's Wonderland over this film again. I really enjoyed that film, and it definitely has a lot more violence in it, and I feel like there's more tension, and I had a lot more fun. With this film, I just didn't have as much fun as I thought I was going to have, so that is why I give it a 2.5 out of 5. However, I want to hear from you guys in the comments. What did you think about Five Nights at Freddy's? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you just think it was kind of meh? And if you had played the games, let me know. Were there other things in this film that I missed that they did a really good job of that I wouldn't recognize because I obviously haven't played most of these games and only seen a little bit of gameplay in passing? Thank you guys for watching this review, and I will see you guys on my next review.